Hey there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So you may be wondering why I'm reviewing the LG G3 now, considering that it's been hailing all the way from 2014. Well, despite its age, it's still got some relatively good features on it which may be interesting for a budget consumer. Speaking of the budget consumer, you can buy this phone used for as little as $75 if you get lucky. And you'd be hard pressed to find a phone that's as good as this, new, within the $75 price bracket. What are the specs? Well, gosh darn, it took you long enough to ask. It's got a Quad HD panel on it, which has the resolution of 2560 by 1440p. It's got 3GB worth of RAM, as well as 32GB worth of storage space. This is plenty enough to have all the apps that you could ever want, especially considering that you can expand the storage up to 256GB. It features the Snapdragon 801 SoC, which has a quad-core clocked at 2.5 GHz, but unfortunately it's on the older 28nm die, which means that it's not as efficient as more recent offerings, although is still used by quite a few new phones anyway. It weighs a measly 149 grams, as well as featuring AC Wi-Fi and NFC support, which is good to see in a phone. It's got a battery of 3000 milliamps, and it's also removable. So if you wanted to upgrade it, you can actually buy a 3500 milliamp battery, which works perfectly fine in the phone. Now let's get into the juicy stuff. The camera is really where this phone shines. It has a 2.1 megapixel f2.0 front-facing camera. Although not very high resolution, it does get bonus points for having the wide aperture. But on the back, it has a 13 megapixel f2.4 camera, which features optical image stabilization. f2.4 is pretty dark compared to today's usual of f2.2 or brighter, but thanks to its optical image stabilization, it actually can become more usable than other phones, especially during daylight hours. It can shoot 4K videos at 30 FPS, but unfortunately can only shoot 1080p videos at the same 30 FPS. Thankfully, the frame rate is rock solid and works pretty well. You're sick of talk, I hear? It's okay, I'll show you the phone in just a second, but I need to warn you that unfortunately, since I bought mine used as well, and I've not been very nice with it, I've actually cracked the screen a little bit. It doesn't really affect the viewing experience for myself, but it can for you maybe. It's very nice to hold in your hand thanks to the curved back. Not many phones have curved backs, but I quite like them now that I've used them. This is the volume up and down button, as well as the lock button. Here's the camera, the infrared, and the flash. On the bottom you have the charging port, as well as the headphone jack. Yep, that's right, it's got one. Up the top, as you can expect, is the speaker and the LEDs. It takes a little while to get used to unlocking the phone from the button on the back, but after a while you get used to it. Which brings me conveniently to the screen, more specifically the lock screen. You can have 5 different shortcuts down the bottom, and you've also got the clock up the top here, and you can also swipe to the side and use widgets, which is quite handy if you want to be using the flashlight, which for some reason on this version of Android is not included up the top here. I don't know why. It runs Android 4.4.1 and is apparently upgradable to Android 6, although it doesn't really work for me. You can have lots of different unlock codes as well as unlock animations, and same with the lock animation. I prefer this one. The screen itself is quite pleasant to look at, although the automatic brightness doesn't adjust very quickly. I have no problems looking at photos and watching videos on this kind of a device. The settings menu has multiple ways that you can have it switched up. You can have it in 4 different tabs here: network, sound, display in general, or you can have it just like a regular Android phone. One of the things that I will note is that you can actually turn off the LEDs up the top here if you don't want them. That might be handy if you want to have your phone on silent mode and also not showing you when you get new messages on Facebook group chat, for example. You're allowed to fit a lot of apps in on the home screen here thanks to its larger resolution. But if that isn't enough, then you can also have folders for your apps, and you can also have more home pages, although I prefer not to. You can rearrange which order you want your back, home, and recent apps buttons to be in if you like. And you can also have them hidden entirely from certain apps. You can have the phone screen stay on just while you're looking at it. And you can even have text messages pop up on top of your phone screen so you can reply to messages while you're using other apps. Just like a Facebook message, really. Within the messaging app, you can zoom in to make things bigger or zoom back out to make them smaller. Also, you can switch between messages by sliding left and right, which is super duper handy. While you're on the home screen, you can actually zoom in to minimize all your apps and just check out the background and scroll through and everything, and just pinch back to bring everything back. It's quite a nice handy feature. When you pull down the app drawer, you get all of your most common settings up the top here, as well as brightness and volume slider, and then your notifications down here. Unfortunately, lots of different notifications from the same app aren't truncated into the one type, but that's just because of this version of Android. The dialer is pretty nice. You can start typing in numbers and get suggestions over here for who you're typing for, and you can add contacts and update contacts straight from here. You can swipe through, just like in the messaging, to see your call logs, contacts, favorites, and groups, and you can rearrange the order. I haven't had any issues with calling people and clarity and all that kind, so I'd say it's pretty good. This phone supports running multiple apps at the same time. You can access that by pressing this back button here. Then you can put, for example, messaging up top and YouTube down the bottom. You can be playing music from YouTube as well as replying to messages. Although if you do start typing, the keyboard will come up on the bottom, of course. When you're done with that, you can close one app at a time, and then close both. Even though it's not the best at gaming, you can still do a bit of it if you like. You can play games like FIFA, you can even play games like Stack. And I'm really bad at it. It's probably about time to show you the music app. Just like the other ones that are built in the system, you can swipe right to switch over from tab to tab. Songs, albums, artists, and genres. It is handy to go through your metadata and listen to all the songs that are electro house, for example. Down the bottom, you can click on the song and it shows you a picture of the album art if possible. You press this button over here to view your playlist, and you can shuffle and play and pause and skip and even do equalizers. Anyway, enough showing you around the system. It's time to take it out into the field and see how the camera actually stacks up.